The following podcast is an exclusive presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Thank you for coming to the Project Entertainment Network store. Please place your order. A good choice. A t-shirt for the horror show with Brian Keene. A Manta Method coffee mug. There's more. A Necrocast on hoodie. That's sharp. But why on earth would you want Bizong leggings? Wait, are you Mr. Frank? The Project Entertainment Network store, stacked with goodies from all your favorite podcasts. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs and more. www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
There shall come a podcast like no other. Defenders Dialogue with Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Marvel Comics' original superhero non-team convenes once again. The Incredible Hulk, the Savage Submariner, the Master of the Mystic Arts, Doctor Strange, and a dynamic supporting cast of Marvel superheroes battle against evil as the Defenders. Without further ado, true believers, here's your hosts, Brian Keene and Christopher Golden. Excelsior!
And welcome back once again, true believers, to the long-delayed Defenders Dialogue. I'm Brian Keene.
And I am Christopher Golden. And Brian, yes, the long-delayed Excelsior to you, my friend.
It's good to be back with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's been, I was telling my wife Connie this morning that, we had missed a couple weeks, and she said, well, it's summer. And I said, no, the people who listen to Defenders Dialogue, they don't care if it's summer. The three people who listen to Defenders Dialogue deserve these episodes because it's with this love that we get through the week.
That's right. I look forward to doing this with you every week, not just because it gives me a chance to reread, the comics of my youth, but also it's a good chance for you and I to touch base. We are so frigging busy, and we never have time to really check in with the people we care about, and I'm glad you and I get this opportunity every week to do that.
Yeah, no, me too, and we should talk a little bit about what, even though we don't usually do this on this, but we have good things to talk about. You were just at Scares the Care this past weekend.
That's right. For listeners who might not know, I serve on the board of directors for a 501c3 charity called Scares the Care. We're composed of horror fans, horror professionals. Every year, we raise money for three beneficiaries: a family with a child who is battling cancer, a family for a mom who's battling breast cancer, and a burn victim. And I should clarify, we were helping burn victims long before I became a burn victim myself. Actor Kane Hodder actually put us onto that, and that's become a renewed focus after my own accident from last year. But it was a very successful convention. We do it every year. All the money goes to the charity. It was successful enough that we were able to present two checks to two of our beneficiaries immediately during the weekend, and our third beneficiary will be helped as well. So a big thanks to all the actors and actresses and directors and writers and comic book artists and fans and everyone else that showed up. It was incredible. And it reminded me, we have friends of our own in this business, Chris, who are going through the same thing. We should talk about a friend of yours, friend of mine, author James A. Moore, who is undergoing his own battle with cancer right now. Now, I have no doubt Jim will kick its ass because, Jim can kick just about anything's ass. But he is going to need help from people to do that. There's an official GoFundMe. And, tell us a little bit about that.
For those who are unaware, Jim was diagnosed with what actually is tonsil cancer. It came on basically overnight. I won't go into the whole long history of it, but basically it had spread to one of his lymph nodes. And actually, it's fantastic that it did spread to the lymph node and only to that one, and didn't go anywhere else in his body except in his neck, because spreading to the lymph node actually made it just overnight become this gigantic thing on his neck. And as gross as that sounds, when he beats this thing, it will be that probably saved his life.
Right.
Because overnight it was like, what the hell is going on here? And it took a couple weeks, but after a couple weeks, clearly that was what was going on. So Jim spent 3 weeks in the hospital. He's going through chemo now. He will end up having radiation, and we are doing a GoFundMe to help him, because the thing is, Brian, he works at Starbucks as a barista, in addition to being a writer, and that's a whole other podcast about healthcare and all of that. So he has pretty good insurance, but when you're a barista at Starbucks and you have insurance, but you rely on income as a writer, you're not going to get your 100% of your pay on disability, and you're not going to get any pay as a writer for the entire duration that you're not writing.
Exactly.
And it's been 2 months almost since Jim has been able to do any writing of any real kind. So we did start this GoFundMe just to make sure that as we tally up what the bills really are, and we know that there's this his sort of inability to have that income, that we can bridge the gap for him and his wife Tessa to get through this period. And our hope is that once it's all tallied up, that this will be all we need to do. So fingers crossed on that. But you never know.
You never know.
Yeah. So Jim is so we've actually we had set our goal for $30,000, which is a lot of money, but it's a long process. This and we've already raised over $22,000 for him.
Yep.
So we're getting there, and in the meantime, Jim and Tessa and I are digging into the bills and trying to figure out what their actual debt from this will be.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we've been the last few weeks, dear listener. But we're back with you now, so that we can get back on track. What we're going to do today, we're just going to cover Champions issue number 4, and then next week's episode. Issue number 4, it's a standalone story, so we can cover it in its entirety. And then next week, we'll get into a multi-parter that could literally be ripped from this morning's headlines.
Yeah.
But it took place in the 70s.
Yeah. And before we do that, though, Brian, we have not recorded a podcast since Marvel made the announcement of their Phase 4.
We have not.
And I just want to say there are a few things in that announcement that made the 70s and 80s Marvel fan in me completely geek out. The first, of course, is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Right.
I just can't believe that movie's being made, and I'm so excited that they're doing it. Then the fact that Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill have written, and Derrickson is directing, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which will co-star this Scarlet Witch, and it's been hinted that it may also co-star Jericho Drum, aka Dr. Voodoo, aka Brother Voodoo.
I'm very limited on what I can say, but I can say that the MCU, they've always experimented with different genres in their films. Captain America. The Winter Soldier was a spy film, for example.
Right.
Thor Ragnarok was a comedy. This Doctor Strange sequel is a flat-out horror movie.
Yeah, and they've said that. They've made that clear, and that's very exciting.
Yeah.
So,
I'm most excited for the Eternals.
Yeah, and again, my exposure to the Eternals is fairly limited, and I was never that, weirdly, and Tom Snagoski would murder me for this, but I have to say that the Jack Kirby concepts and characters, the stuff that's sort of purely Kirby, never really spoke to me.
Yeah.
And my enjoyment of the Eternals actually is sort of limited to I did love the storyline, which I suspect they're going to follow here, where it's the Eternals who sort of waking up and they don't know that they were the Eternals initially.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, I love the Celestials, and I like the fact that the Eternals movie is supposed to give us like the roots of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But yeah, that's interesting. Why do you love it so much? I think this is on topic, by the way. I don't think this is a tangent.
Oh, this is absolutely on topic. Yeah. We've talked on this show that, of course, my first two comics were Defenders, the issue with Nebulon and the Headmen, and Hulk's pet dear Bambi, but also Jack Kirby's Captain America and the Falcon. It was in the middle of the Mad Bomb saga.
Yeah, which is great stuff, no doubt.
Yeah, this was back in '76. My third, fourth, and fifth comics came from Toys R Us. You'll remember this. They used to sell 3 Marvel comics in a plastic bag.
Yep.
And it was an issue of Conan. It was, I think, maybe Skull the Slayer. And there was an issue of Jack Kirby's The Eternals. And even though I was a little kid, I'm like, oh, this is the guy that did Captain America, because the art and the dialogue were instantly identifiable. And it was insane. Every other page was a double spread splash page, and it was these giant monsters and all these caricatures. And it was Eric Von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods for elementary school students. It was magic, and it was wonderful. It seems very dated now. I have the hardcover omnibus that collects the entire series, and I've given it to my 11-year-old dungeon master. And he gets the magic, but it reads very dated to him.
Right.
But what the MCU does best is they take those dated concepts and they update them for today's audience. So I think the Eternals has a lot of potential.
Oh, me too. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I expect the movie will be everything I liked about the Eternals comics that I have read, without the things that made me trip over it,
Right.
So yeah, but anyway, really cool announcements. And also that announcement of Mahershala Ali as Blade, I was thrilled.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because I know Wesley Snipes was angling to continue to be Blade, and I'm just like, please no. I mean, he was great as Blade, but he's too old, and my hope is that that'll be the cornerstone for doing more Marvel horror. And he needs to be young. And man, Mahershala Ali is such a badass. He's perfect.
I wouldn't be surprised if there is a post-credit scene in Doctor Strange that gives us our first glimpse of Blade.
I had the same thought. Particularly as they announced the movie so early. It's the furthest one out, but they've already cast Blade, which usually indicates that he's going to appear, that the character's going to appear earlier.
Right.
In any case, the Champions. This issue, issue 4, is guest written by X-Men legend and comics legend in general, Chris Claremont.
That's right.
And with art by George Tuska. And again, I got to say that this issue, even though it's a fill-in issue, this is the thing that is in my brain when I think of the Champions before we started rereading. It's this opening page, actually, of a splash page of Hercules and the Black Widow walking on the beach in Malibu, California. And it's this amazing splash page by Tuska that's in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, as we said on the last week's show, I did not get to read the Champions in its original incarnation. This is all new to me, but there's an instant familiarity with this splash page, with the writing, with the art style. This takes me back to my childhood. Even though I've never read these issues, I know these characters and I know this house style. And it's really interesting that, this is some of Claremont's earlier work. I believe, I don't believe he was doing X-Men at this point yet. Correct?
No, I think he was actually.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Yeah, I think he was, and he was doing a lot at this point.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I mean, you have, and speaking of the MCU again, it's stuff like this that makes me think, oh, they really should put Hercules in the next Thor movie.
Oh, hell yes.
Even just introduce him. But we shall see. All right. So we begin with Hercules and the Black Widow on the beach. It's a once-in-a-lifetime day, Claremont tells us. One that's meant to be savored and remembered, or so the Black Widow thinks. But Hercules is preoccupied.
That's right. He's angry over the events of the last few issues or the last episode of this podcast. He tells the Black Widow, "It doth pain his heart to see Pluto turn against his father Zeus and yet go unpunished for his treachery."
Yeah. And then we turn the page and we have a sequence that sort of reminds me, although the characters are different, of some of our favorite issues of the Defenders in a way. We have a character in shadows. And again, the George Tuska art is amazing in this issue.
It is.
They're having this conversation about the previous 3 issues of the comic. And then this shadowy figure leaps from the dunes onto Hercules and the Black Widow. Black Widow is thrown into the sand but fights back against the self-identified Billy. She hits him with a near-killing blow, but it doesn't stop him, Brian.
Right, yeah, I mean, Black Widow's fucking this guy up, but unfortunately she can't fight nature. And as he tosses her into the surf, a wave knocks her over, allowing the self-identified Billy to get his hands on her. And he tells her he's going to kill her.
I feel like that last panel on the 3rd page needs a Brian Keene reading.
Should I do it in a Billy voice?
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, spoiler warning to our listeners. Billy is going to be revealed on the next page to be an old man. So, Billy's going to kill you, lady. Billy's going to kill you bad. Kill you, kill you, kill you, kill you.
I think
it's a time for my Geritol.
I feel like it may be that you should be in the next season of Nosferatu.
I was talking with actor Keith David over the weekend about voice work. I really want to get into voice work, Chris. I think that's where my future lies.
It's funny. I think you do a great job in voice work. And I've been saying for our entire friendship that Tom Snigoski should be a voice actor. Now, you don't know Tom that well, but you should hear the voices he does just on a daily basis, particularly when he imitates, like old Southern guys out of the Outlaw Josie Wales.
Right.
Yeah, I can't even do it. I'm not even going to attempt. But Tom should definitely do. I keep telling him that if they ever make his comics/book series Atomic Frenchie into a cartoon, he needs to do the voice. But he tells me it's Paul Giamatti. So in his brain, anyway. Anyway, we are so digressing, folks. This is how you can tell we have been away from the podcast for a few weeks.
This is what happens. Anyway, Thor recovers, or excuse me,
Hercules.
Not Thor. Hercules recovers, saves Black Widow, but it is then revealed, as I said, that Billy is in fact an old man, and Billy begs them. He says, "Don't hurt Billy, miss. Please don't hurt Billy no more. I'll be good." And, Black Widow's trying to calm him down, but then some 1970s costumed mercenaries with guns show up.
Isn't it weird how all of the mercenaries in comics have these weird uniforms, and in real life they don't dress anything like this? I think it would be It'd be much more interesting if we could identify our mercenaries like this. But anyway, Hercules leaps in front of the Black Widow to prevent her from being shot. It does injure him, and quickly enough, they find themselves waking up elsewhere at the San Marino State Hospital.
That's right.
This is a. I have to say, it's great that this is a one-shot. It's a fill-in issue, but it feels like a regular issue of the comic. And I think if if I think that's sort of the highest compliment you could give a comic book writer, and Claremont certainly fit the bill, where you could come in on a fill-in and have it be just as good or better than the regular run.
That's right. That's right.
In any case, go ahead.
We find out that the asylum is run by a guy named Lansing, Dr. Edward Lansing. He's appeared in other Marvel comics. Like many bad guys, he wanted to recreate the super soldier serum that turned Steve Rogers into Captain America. And like so many others who tried that, it went terribly awry. Basically, he mutated the inmates of the hospital, one of which was Billy, of course.
Yeah. So we can sum that one up fairly easily, as you just did. That's good. That allows us to skip a couple pages. It's what they call a welfare hospital. Billy was his prototype. Unfortunately, the process seems to affect the men mentally. It turns them into simpletons or mindless beasts, but I'll work that out in time. Hercules and the Black Widow attack the mercenaries, but basically Lansing uses the Black Widow's life to get Hercules to calm down, and basically forces them to serve him.
That's right.
So we get what is the classic Marvel Comics moment, Brian, because this whole thing is merely a setup for champion to fight champion.
That's right. We transition to Warren Worthington, a.k.a. the Angel's house, where Warren and Iceman and Ivan, and, a reminder for those who, because it's been a while since we did the last episode, Ivan is also a former KGB spy. He's basically Natasha's best friend. Him and the Black Widow, they're inseparable. So the three of them are in Warren's house, and Ivan is losing his shit because nobody's heard from Black Widow. And, Angel's saying, oh, she can take care of herself. When suddenly, what happens, Chris?
As if on cue, Hercules smashes through the wall with the Black Widow right behind, along with a number of old Billy-type former patients who've been turned into simpleton super soldiers.
Let's call them geriatric super soldiers.
Geriatric super soldiers. There's a big fight, Brian. We don't need to go through the whole thing. It does allow us to have a nice Hercules versus Iceman moment. And then we have, again, the classic 70s. And just once, I want the Marvel Cinematic Universe to have this. A scientist with a box in his hand that has a joystick on it. And somehow that's going to control the minds of the people around him.
But it works.
It's the Atari mind control box.
Yep. He takes over Iceman's head. Iceman thinks, I feel like mush inside. I can't give up now. I can't. And just as Lansing is about to take over all the champions, the best part of the issue for me, you hear a vroom, vroom off the panel. And here he comes, the man himself. The caption even tells us the man's name is Blaze, Johnny Blaze, better known perhaps as the Ghost Rider.
Yeah, and again, it always improves everything. In fact, every Marvel comic should have this on like page 16. The Ghost Rider just rides in and saves the day.
Just fuck shit up.
And then all of this, there's a fight, the champion versus champion. It's really fun. And then you get this fantastic splash page of Iceman, Angel, and Ghost Rider all attacking the mind-controlled Hercules. It's a great panel, and this is the thing, Brian. This is why we did the Defenders. This is why we're doing the Champions. It's these characters that are not the Avengers, that are not the X-Men. They're not the familiar group. It's these unlikely characters that should not be on the same page together.
Exactly.
Is what makes this stuff so fun.
Exactly.
So I love that splash.
And you know what I like about that splash? It is a great example to point to when we talk about Chris Claremont's writing, because Chris Claremont spends exactly one splash page showing us the boys fighting, Hercules, Ghost Rider, Iceman, Angel. And that allows him pages, 3 pages in total, to really focus in on Natasha, the Black Widow, and Ivan. And, it's not just the boys in the spotlight. Black Widow is the star of this issue. And, the character development there between her and Ivan, it's 70s Bronze Age melodrama, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it's basically Ivan is not mind controlled. He's fighting the attackers. Black Widow is still mind controlled. Ivan doesn't understand what's happening, like why he's trying to get through to her. They're fighting, and although Ivan is excellent hand-to-hand combatant, Black Widow is the Black Widow.
That's right.
She clearly is going to beat him, and in a moment she's going to kill him. And he's appealing to her as he's losing his breath. And she says, "Nothing personal, friend." And it's that word, friend, that starts to get her. She says her mind is burning as if on fire inside. She can't think. And it starts to break through. And then she realizes she breaks out of the mind control because of it.
That's right.
And then she's fucking pissed.
And Black Widow's pissed, but this also begins in reading ahead what seems to be a recurring plot line in the Champions, wherein Ivan is disabled.
Well, again, let's go back to, I think I said this in the first episode of the Champions coverage, that Ivan is the Giles of the Champions, at least when he's in this. Anybody who watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer knows Giles is famous for his cranial trauma, for getting knocked on the head and knocked out. So yes, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, Lansing's there with his Atari mind control device, but it's not working on the Black Widow anymore. And she kicks the shit out of him, breaks the device. She says, "It's just you and me now, Lansing, you and me." He tries to escape. He runs towards the geriatric super soldiers, and they kill him.
Well, he forgets that now that she has smashed his Atari mind control device, he's no longer controlling them. And
That's right.
The implication is that they tear him apart. I guess they don't, but they do beat him to death.
Yep.
Which, let's face it, he had it coming.
Oh, he had it coming. Absolutely. I mean, you would think at some point in the Marvel Universe's history, they would just learn to leave well enough alone with the super soldier serum. I mean, yeah, it worked on Steve Rogers, but it turned Ted Sallis into the Man Thing. It never goes anywhere good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, I think that actually that should be the next Captain America movie.
Man Thing?
Yeah, it should be about the super soldier serum. And it should be Captain America teaming up with Man Thing.
You know what? I would watch the shit out of that.
Me too.
Kevin Feige, if you're listening, Chris and I will write that for scale.
Scale plus 10, Brian. We're gonna pay.
Yeah, scale plus 10 points on the back end.
Yeah, that I don't think Marvel does that. But anyway,
no.
Not unless you change your name to Brian Downey Jr.
Bump.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself. Anyway. That's the wrap up. We get this moment. Hercules is obviously deeply troubled by what's happening to him, or what's happened to him, and he's furious about what Lansing did to these old men.
Right.
They were innocents. They trust Lansing to care for them, and he repaid their trust by destroying their souls. There you go.
But Angel reminds him that, there's evil in the world. Lansing was part of it, but there's good, and we, the Champions, are part of that. So what Claremont does here with the fourth issue, remember, the Champions got thrown together by accident when Pluto invaded the Earth and tried to do the whole forced marriage thing. So, there is still a reason for them to stick together as a team.
Yes. As the Angel says, the question is, do we do anything about it, or do we sit around crying in our beer?
That's right.
He says, to help those who can't help themselves, the innocents, the victims of people like Lansing, because the world still needs champions, and truer words have never been spoken.
That's right.
And you're right. we will get political in the next episode. Sorry, folks. It's coming.
I was going to say next week, if you've looked at the news this morning with the whole China-U.S. trade war, next week's issue, which came out in, I don't know, 75, 76, it could have been written today.
Yeah.
And for those out there who scream that there's too much politics in their comics, there's one particular panel next week that I can't wait to talk about. I bet you know which one it is, Chris.
I do. It'll be a very interesting conversation.
That's right. So,
and again, you know what? And I'm going to save it for next week. But if you are someone who does not want to hear Brian and me talk about politics, maybe skip the next episode. But of course, we'll be talking mostly about comics and 1970s and 80s Marvel glory. But you can't have that conversation without touching on the connection between then and now.
Exactly. And if you would like to sponsor that conversation, there's an easy way to do it. Go to projectentertainmentnetwork.com, click contact, and let them know, hey, I'd like to buy an ad on Defenders Dialogue. It's that easy. While you're at projectentertainmentnetwork.com, maybe pick up a sweet Defenders Dialogue t-shirt or coffee mug or bumper sticker or mouse pad or all the other stuff they have available there.
That sounds good. And
Chris?
Brian,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You were about to say that people should also listen to your podcast, The Horror Show with Brian Keene.
Actually, I wasn't, because I thought, you're no longer on Three Guys with Beards.
Well, actually, we still have 2 episodes to go. Jim got sick before we could record 99 and 100.
Typical Jim, getting cancer and fucking up.
I know, really. I mean, it's so discourteous of him.
Now, I have to ask a question. So you're going to have rotating beards now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, well, John Urbansick, author John Urbansick, is staying with Mary and I for a month. He has a full beard. Might he be able to help guest an episode?
I think that's a great idea.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say that John and Mary could be 3 guys with beards.
Well, Mary has often been accused of being my beard. So I believe Mary has, in fact, guest hosted the show in the past for you guys. So, that would work.
She has. Yeah, she has. Well, that's entirely probable. And now that you've thrown John under that bus, he has to do it.
He has to do it. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, we will see you back here next week. But before we go, there's something that Chris needs to say, something important.
Brian, I just was not ready because usually you're promoting the other podcast. So I will just say, Excelsior, true believers, with all our hearts, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, folks. Bye.
You're listening to American Top 40. More tragedy in the news today. Kim Kardashian has a new baby. What the hell? There's nothing good to listen to. Hey, wait, what's this?
Anything moist. You gotta roll that out.
See, it makes me do weird things. I don't like it.
God damn it.
I'd
be going down on myself?
Shit. Hey guys, it's Bill,
Mick,
Maya,
and Junior
from the Unsupervised Podcast.
check us out every Thursday on the Project Entertainment Network.
Take a break from the stress of the world and come have a laugh with or at us.
Bill.
My Favorite Story, a podcast author anthology featuring short fiction from the hosts of the Project Entertainment Network shows Three Guys with Beards, Jim Moore, Jonathan Maybar, and Chris Golden,
Tom Clark from Necrocast, Ig-On,
Brian Keene of The Horror Show, Chuck Buda, and Armand Rosamilia of The Mando Method, Mary San Giovanni of Cosmic Shenanigans, Jay Wilburn from Matters of Faith, John Urbansick of Inkstains,
Biz Zung's Mr. Frank.
Available on Kindle and in paperback and through the Project Entertainment Network store.
www.projectentertainmentnetwork.com.
This has been an exclusive presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.